Hello and welcome, everybody. This is the Hot Corner Insider Live Strategy Session. I am your host, Steve Straza. I'm the Director of Research at All Star Charts. We do this every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. A little bit to talk about today. We're going to focus on big cap tech, talk about some of the best looking stocks right now. We'll talk about this Bitcoin ETF approval news. We will talk a little bit about a couple things, and we're going to do some educational stuff right here at the top. We are getting questions about what exactly goes into the table. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then we got some Baker Bros at the end. But before we do any of that, nothing that we discuss here today constitutes any solicitation to buy or sell any security. It's all solely for informational purposes and not to be construed as investment advice. This should look familiar to most of you. So we do this every morning. This is just the daily insider activity, right? That comes up on our radar. So this is just the past 2 days here. We have some good examples. We're tracking political filings, right? What you see here with Josh Gottheimer today, House of Representatives, buying a defense stock, pretty normal, political filing there. So he's buying Northrop Grumman. The political filings, anything above 15,000 really comes onto our radar. Again, we're not in the business of trying to figure out just exactly how wealthy all of these insiders are, and therefore how material a certain purchase might be to them. Right? That gets a little bit too nuanced, and it's not a game that we think is beneficial to play, and definitely not a valuable use of our time. So above 15,000 political filings, we got it. You see up here the first three from today, 13 Gs. That is a institutional passive investment stake. Form 13s are triggered whenever an institution takes a stake over 5% in a company. So anything that's material, right, as long as they're not increasing their stake from 5.5 to 5.6%, will pretty much come onto our list. We are particularly interested in the original filings, like we have here today from Millennium Management, right? So sometimes they'll file an amended Form 13. So the Gs are passive, Ds are active. And the amendment will simply update, if they made a new purchase or an additional purchase, it just updates, what that new ownership percentage is. And then we'll track that in the comment box here, right? You see 8.5% to 10%, 3.7 to 6.5. And then again, the original filing, which tells us this is a brand new investment. This is the first time that they're filing and disclosing it in the case of Mobileye here. We'll move our eyes down here to this is now yesterday's table. So we have a CEO filing a Form 4. That's really probably the most important form that we track. So the Form 4 is for insiders, typically company executives, but also any owner with a 10% stake or greater. Right? So sometimes you'll have to file both the Form 13s and the 10s. The 10s are more timely, you typically get them in 2 days. Right? While the Form 13s can take a while. You're looking at 15-day lag time. 13Ds stand out because those are active stakes. The active investments tend to be ones that you kind of want to follow more closely than passive. Oftentimes you'll see institutions, take board seats or try to impact change at a company when they take a stake. We look out for that. We had one yesterday, Browning West LP, brand new 13D filing, disclosing their original investment of 5% in Gildan Activewear. And then this is Walgreens CEO with the Form 4 filing. For the Form 4s, we're pretty much going to track, or anything above 100,000 will pretty much make our list. So any questions on this? Now is definitely the time to ask. What are my thoughts on Bank of America? I like the banks. We got earnings coming up here. very soon. So definitely want to be mindful of that. But let me just check out what Bank of America is doing here today. These things were coiled really tight. I don't love the action here today. Earnings might have to bail these tight continuation patterns out at this point. If you look at something like Wells Fargo, really giving some back the past 2 days here after looking like it was going to go. So, am I a little bit bummed? I have some short-term, trading positions on these. I would like them to have moved ahead of earnings, right? Started pricing in some solid quarters. Haven't seen it yet. I think you just want to be patient. Let these reports come out on Friday. That's we're going to get some great information Friday, right? When the first three big banks report. So let's wait and see. I need to start setting alerts so I don't miss these shows. Yeah, you could always rewatch them, right? Always rewatch them. What's up, Doug? All right, so no questions on the table. All right, great. If you ever do have questions, just reach out. Big cap tech. Semiconductors absolutely surged to start the week. Most of you probably know what NVIDIA is doing, but it's not just NVIDIA, right? It's just, again, these big cap tech stocks, which were by far the strongest group last year, still, despite the broadening of the rally and, more and more opportunities popping up in different groups and new sectors and new industry groups, really most, or at least a good deal of the best looking chart setups continue to come from large cap tech, large cap growth, right? Whether it's tech, techie discretionary, techie communications, you know the names we're talking about. Meanwhile, so as the Nasdaq 100, we had a couple days of weakness into the beginning of the year, through the beginning of the year, looked like, wow, this could be a really ugly failed breakout, and now right back at that level, looks like we're gunning for those prior cycle highs again here today, just north of 400. You know, the resilience here, the way that we corrected and now so quickly heading right back for this breakout, it's encouraging, right? From a bullish standpoint. This is highly constructive price action. When you think of XLK or semiconductors or any of the other strongest groups, home builders, broker dealers, the way that they kind of digested gains, battled with their prior cycle highs for a lot of the back half of last year and have since broken out, industrials too, right? XLI. And you think that those groups, those indexes have already made this breakout, made this resolution. Why wouldn't NASDAQ be next? Dow's already done it. Why wouldn't S&P 500 be next, right? So it looks like that's where we're headed. Meanwhile, Mary just sent me this. I like to pay attention to the sell side notes every now and then. This one, I like this one a lot because it speaks to the theme that I'm talking about right now. Sentiment is really souring on, they're calling it the Magnificent Seven here, talking about geopolitical risk. And basically, the chart that I'm showing, they're making the point that, the concentration, so the largest stocks and their weighting in the S&P 500 index is at record levels. Yeah, it's true. We've been here before. We were here a few years ago. Now we're back here. Does that mean that these stocks have to fall apart? No, I don't think so. Does it mean that they even have to lose leadership? I don't think so. We saw a little bit of a move away from the Magnificent Seven late last month. Talked about it on here, a couple different shows in December. At least Magnificent Seven weakening on a relative basis. I think, the story would make sense as participation broadens for the biggest and the best names to not have the kind of, year that they had last year, just outperforming by a historically wide margin the rest of the market. I wouldn't bet on that happening again. But when we look at the charts, particularly on an absolute basis, these stocks still look great outside of Apple. Remove Apple, Microsoft, Google. Look at Meta today, NVIDIA. They all look fantastic. So I think you want to be careful in completely throwing in the towel and, even doubting that they could keep leading. like I said, maybe they don't lead like they did last year, but why can't they keep leading? And then I see, research notes like this from the sell side. Seems like sentiment has really soured on this group. The technicals have not. So that's interesting. Let's talk about some of them now. Microsoft, where better to start than Microsoft? The way that it's looking with Microsoft, coiling high and tight here above its old highs, it's got the breakout. Sure looks like the next stop here is the 161.8 at 434. Then you look at a chart of Apple, which I didn't bring along. I'm sorry. You could easily pull it up yourself. Apple's kind of moving in the other direction, hasn't secured the breakout, been really weak, particularly over the short term. They're only, I think, about 100 million, 2.9 trillion in market cap, while Microsoft is at 2.8. Could 2024 be the year where Microsoft actually passes, maybe in a sustainable way for the first time ever, or at least the first time in modern history, passes Apple from a market cap perspective? That'd be cool. Microsoft, new king. NVIDIA, Consumer Electronics Show this week. A lot of headlines out of there. NVIDIA, one of the first ones to take out these old highs from late 2021, ran right up into its first price target. This was like the monster earnings report from last year when everybody realized, holy cow, these guys are like tripling their revenue year over year. Right. And then we went straight sideways after hitting this target for a long time, 2 quarters, more. Now we're going. Next stop, 703 for NVIDIA. Google, not the most actionable here. 10 points higher is really our ultimate target. We've been long, should already be in it, but this is also just for illustrative purposes, how good these stocks look, right? So Google heading back for those old highs now. 150 is the next stop. Meta, new highs today. It's basically there. 385 gets Meta back to its prior cycle highs. And, why wouldn't this one look like NVIDIA or Microsoft soon and break out above those old highs around 385? What's interesting about a lot of these too, as I cycle through them, right? I'm just being reminded, we always write the insider activity that got it onto our list here in the middle of the chart. A lot of political filings, right? So it's a good thing we track those. Because the reason why a lot of these Magnificent Seven names are even in our universe, insider buying universe, because of political filings. Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, like this one, we got the base breakout, a hard retest, and really, overthrow of this base breakout level around 104, launched higher off this level. This one's been as good as any stock, really, for the past few months. 164 is the next stop. Uber. You guys know how we feel about this one. Probably our second best trade last year, only because Coinbase was so ridiculously good. This was a great trade for us. I think, this one continues to excite me as much as anything over, the longest time frames. The stock is still cheap on certain valuation metrics. Enterprise value to EBIT, which I tend to like. One of the cheaper large cap techs, large cap growth. So if we're above 64, and I think we're heading there right now, the last 2 sessions for Uber have been remarkably strong. Look at these last 2 candles, up over 2% yesterday, and what was an ugly tape, another 3% today. Wow. Uber 64. You could probably use the pivot highs, which come in right around 63.40. Right, 63.64 for Uber. You're not already long. I think this one's got a lot left in the tank. ServiceNow. How clean is this one? We have seen this pattern over and over and over and over again. Sure looks like the NASDAQ, doesn't it? Service now above 708, those prior cycle highs from late 21. It's a textbook breakout if and when we get it. See what's going on here today. Just, I mean, this action is so bullish. You're pretty much getting it today. We're trading at 712 here in service now as I speak, up 2% today. This will be the fourth straight up day. You know, really gunning for those December highs shown here, which coincide, pretty closely with those late 2021 highs. This is super actionable. You can get into this one right here, right now. Datadog, another one of my favorites. I really like this Datadog, 120. We have it marked up like 114 here. I think it's really 120. We're there. 120 and change right now. Classic inverse head and shoulders pattern, right? Downtrend into this beautiful rounding bottom or head and shoulders reversal, right? I think it's definitely confirmed above 120. Take out those pivot highs right around 125. Ultimate confirmation. Next stop 147. After that, 200. These are all tech, all growth stocks, right? All large caps. How big's Datadog? Datadog's the smallest one, but it's still big. $38 billion. Palo Alto Networks, cybersecurity stocks, red hot. Really nice leadership across time frames for cyber stocks. Again, a political filing gets Palo Alto on our list. This one broke out. It's like NVIDIA, already well through its first price target, heading to that second one now. If you're wondering, like, how can I get into something like this that's right in the middle of its range, right? If you really needed to get a position on this for whatever reason, you just like it so much, you're happy to trade it from here to 340. What do? I'm just pulling it up on my other screen here. Wow, 4.6% today. So this was yesterday's candle. We don't have today's candle here now, but it's trading at like 314. So it's getting a little late for what I'm about to describe. I didn't know price action today was so bullish. But if you anchor a VWAP right from the pivot highs here from December, this December high, which is the all-time high, we just gapped through it this morning. Right? So if you're following along at home, anchor that volume weighted average price, right at the high from a few weeks ago, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Monster gap right through it today. That's how you can enter, these short-term corrective patterns within longer-term uptrends, right? Because you got this is clearly a primary uptrend, but you're getting this counter trend wave off of those old December highs, right? Just drop a VWAP. Once it breaks, it tells you buyers are back in control. You already know the primary trend is higher, the underlying trend is higher. You got that wind at your back. You just really need a clean, logical entry and a way to manage risk. VWAP is so good for that. So make the VWAP your friend. CrowdStrike, CRWD, cyber again. Big Form 4 filer last year. This one's just about target hit. See what CrowdStrike's doing out here today. 280. I mean, look at the last three candles in CrowdStrike. I want to talk about near-term relative strength. If you're wondering why I'm coming on here talking about, large cap tech as the theme today, when we get this kind of information, we have to talk about it. Look at the last three candles for something like CRWD or PANW. The market's speaking to us out here this week. Big cap tech, not giving up its leadership position so easily, after all. Okay, big tobacco yesterday. Who was paying attention? I hope nobody, okay? We have been very vocal about how much noise we think is happening in crypto right now with these spot Bitcoin ETF approval headlines. So the SEC came out and embarrassed themselves yesterday. Apparently their Twitter was hacked and they, dropped some sort of announcement that the ETFs were approved. Then they had to come out and say, oops, nope, we got hacked. They're not approved. And it's just all a big mess. What happened? Not much. Bitcoin got like a rip and then came off, I guess. Ethereum's looking pretty good out here today. This is noise. Price continues, to keep us on the right side. The charts continue to play out in these textbook patterns. Seeing participation expand into the altcoins. It's not all about these ETF launches. And then be prepared, right? Because it won't end here. When we're done with the Bitcoin news and we get that out of the way and they're all approved, then it's going to be Ethereum. Then it'll eventually be Solana, some of the other alts, right? There's always going to be, this pretend catalyst that people want to talk about. The prices for cryptos and the prices for Bitcoin are going higher right now. I don't think because of any ETF approval, but simply because there are more buyers than sellers. Because Bitcoin is in the primary uptrend. Because Bitcoin just completed a massive textbook reversal pattern last year. It is now in the markup phase. It's not because ETFs are getting approved. The market knew that these ETFs would get approved 3 quarters ago. The smart money moved. They've been positioned. If anything, I think this is a pretty obvious sell the news event. I actually think it's too obvious to even get that sell the news type of move that you would think might happen. Right? The market's designed to fool the majority. The market fools most of the people most of the time. So if investing starts to feel easy, right, or if any of these narratives or stories start to seem like they're too obvious, right, almost too good to be true, they probably are. Price, right? Coinbase. Breaking out here, textbook reversal, absolute and relative terms. We love it. I don't know what all of this approval news means for the price of Bitcoin or other cryptos. What I do know is that it will be very, very bullish for Coinbase's bottom line. All of these ETF launches are definitely going to drive incremental revenues for Coinbase. Why? They are doing the custody. For all of these asset managers listed here. Right? So they're going to help service these funds for the fund managers. And I would imagine get to charge all sorts of good transaction fees. So Coinbase is winning. 160 is that new level. Again, this is a good one. That trick that we just talked about, anchor that VWAP in Coinbase, right? So if we anchor that, drop a WAP on the, what date is this? I guess that's December 28th. Like peaked like the, second to last day of the year. VWAP comes in just north of 160 right here, which is our level. We had this little shelf of lows before another leg lower in 2022, 160, next stop 240. But if you have any sort of a, intermediate to long-term time frame, 160 to 240 can and probably will happen like that. I really think you want to see Coinbase back at its prior cycle highs around 367. Biotech, real quick, let's hit on some biotech. This space is exciting me right now. Biotechs continue to look really good. Healthcare as a sector looks good. Sentiment similar to financials and large cap techs, like we just talked about. Sentiment is pretty, down in the dumps for healthcare stocks. That's a nice setup. Just catching up on the chat a little bit. All right, so here's IBB. This is the cap-weighted BlackRock Biotech ETF. We're above, 135-ish, 136-ish. Let me get the exact level. It's just these pivot highs from last year. So for IBB, that's right at 138. Above 138, the reversal is in. Path of least resistance is now higher for this group of stocks. What do we want to do about it? Well, the first thing I want to do when I find out it's a new bull market for biotech is say, hey, what are the best, smartest biotech investors, the biotech investors with the best track record in history? What are they buying right now? You all know who that is, Baker Bros. So I'm sorry, I don't want to bore you guys. I'm sure a lot of you heard this on the morning show this morning, but I'm into this idea. I think this makes a lot of sense. Let's just do it again really quick. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. Seattle Genetics was Baker Bros' biggest position. It was 54% of their portfolio. Got some stats down here, right? It's 54% of Baker Bros' portfolio. They owned almost a quarter of the outstanding shares. It was worth $10 billion market value. The other thing worth pointing out, why do I like them so much? Why do we talk so much about them? They made $9 billion, $8.7 billion on this trade, almost 7x. That's one of the greatest trades I've ever tracked from an insider filing standpoint. That's mind-blowing. $9 billion on one investment. So anyway, Pfizer acquiring Seagen now for about $230 a share. That $10.2 billion of shares that they owned just got liquidated into cash. Acquisition, deals closed. So Baker Bros, the biggest biotech bulls, the biggest biotech investors on Wall Street, sitting in their office right now, with $10 billion in dry powder. I'll tell you what they're not going to do with it. They're not going to put in money market funds. They're going to deploy this capital, and I would imagine that they deploy it swiftly with the way that biotechs are, really catching a bid lately. One thing or one option I think that they could use that money on is building their stake in Immunocore. So this is IMCR. Baker Bros currently owns, I think, about $130 million worth of this one. IMCR versus its biotech peers, shown in the lower pane here. Stock pushing to new all-time highs. It was just at new all-time highs like last week on an absolute basis. Also pushing new all-time highs versus biotech peer group on relative terms. So the stock chart checks out. Then when we think of, the potential that Baker Bros could really increase their stake, they only own like 3% and change of outstanding shares in Immunocore. If you go and look through their other positions, they tend to own a very material amount, at least a double-digit percentage of the companies that they invest in. Right? They're not trying to buy 2-3% of shares. That would actually be the exception for them. They tend to build, large concentrated positions and hold them for a long period of time. I don't think they only want to own 3% of Immunocore. I think they're going to take that cash from the SGen acquisition, and some of that's going to go right back into Immunocore, and they're going to build that stake, to be more commensurate with their other stakes in the double-digit percentages. IMCR, if we're above 62, I think, guys, if you're not already in it, I was just buying it the other day, so trust me, I did not get in at 62, and that's okay. I think the real breakout level, it's nice to line this up with the 2021 high, but we have a shelf of highs just from last year around 67 and change. I think you could use that as your risk level. First target, 89. There you see it, Baker Bros. Two more biotechs and then we're done. CymaBay Therapeutics, CBay. RA Capital Management is in this one with a passive stake of 6.2%. Big old multi-year base breakout at 1550. First target hit 2433. That's our new level now. We could be long against that with a target just above 38. The more important point about a name like this is that as a new bull market is just now emerging for biotechs as an industry group, this one's already been in a bull market on its own for a while now, right? So this is a leader. It's one that we want to keep leaning on now that biotechs, are looking better and better. Another one, shorter term leader here, but just look at the move off of the October lows. This one's tripled from 330 to 10. This is Iovance Biotherapeutics, IOVA, Form 4 filer, $26.5 million. That's a big Form 4. We're above 9.25. We're long with a target of 1340. Those summer highs from 2022. More important point is that biotech stocks are now a group of stocks that we're going to be talking about more and more and more can't stress enough just how much I like this Immunocore. I am going to flip it back to the chat now. Make sure I didn't miss anything. What is up, everybody? I hope you guys can't hear this obnoxious like hedge trimming or palm tree trimming that's going on right outside my office. I hope it's not driving you guys as crazy as it is me. Politicians are such good traders. Nick, honestly, of all the insiders we track, the politicians are the worst. They get it wrong all the time. Baker Bros rarely gets it wrong. Politicians, sometimes they make the most idiot moves. But it's a good story. It's a good narrative, right? So they tell you that on the news. Nancy Pelosi, look at these tech trades she made. You know, every stock in the NASDAQ 100 was ripping when she was long NVIDIA calls. So, yeah. Uber, definitely cheap. I agree. Yeah, financials. Listen, they're not acting the way, as somebody who owns a lot of financials or particularly a lot of banks, they're not acting the way I would like them to. Just one day. And again, you know, Friday is the day. See how they act on Friday after these reports come out for the banks. Yeah, cyber's good. I don't know what LDI is. Drop a wop. I like that too, right? Good. Great idea, Chris. You guys are just so fun. I can't even get through all this. Okay, Curtis. JPM Healthcare. Yeah, I've been tracking it. The healthcare conference. It's hard to say. Again, I try not to overthink these things. You could easily say that part of the strength from big cap tech that we spent most of the call talking about is being driven by Consumer Electronics Show, CES, right? But that doesn't take away from the fact that price is doing what it's doing. It doesn't change it. So I'm less concerned with why and more concerned with what always. Yep, XLV, XBI, good. Good. I would love a Baker Bros t-shirt. Somebody asked today on the morning show, in the morning show chat, can we get Baker Bros on the show? I would love that. I wouldn't count on it. I wouldn't count on it. A lot of these hedge fund guys that, they don't want to talk to anybody. Nothing to do with me or JC. They don't do media. I used to work at a hedge fund back in the day, with a popular hedge fund manager. You couldn't even take a picture of him. You couldn't even catch him walking out of his office. Very private people, for good reason. Look up what happened to Eddie Lampert. Boy, 20 years ago now. So they're careful, as they should be. Overthinking, good for weight loss. How big is Baker Bros, you think? Employees night. You could check. You could check. They put that in the filing, what their AUM is. The more important point then, so the question was, how big is Baker Bros? The thing I care more about is not how big their AUM is. Listen, like I said, the best hedge fund I ever worked at, in my opinion, the best hedge fund ever, SAC Capital, they were only like 10 billion, fluctuated between like 10 and 15 while I was there. And that was by design. He doesn't want to be bigger than that. Not everybody wants to be Ray Dalio, have this, massive fund, right? So I wouldn't worry too much about the size. The more important point for Baker Bros is that they just got liquidated in half of their portfolio, right? Their S-Gen position was making up 54% of their fund. Now that that's cash, this is a hedge fund, right? They got to perform. They got to deploy that capital. They can't, like I said, they can't put it in money market. They got to go make that money work for them. They're putting it right back into biotechs. And I think Immunocore's got to be at the top of their list. Yeah, 0.72 and SAC Capital are the same place. They made the transition. When I was there, I actually helped reorganize a lot of the companies. It was a blast. I do have hedge fund stories. Yeah, we'll get a beer one day, Curtis. All right, everybody, this has been fun as always. Thank you for joining me. This has been the Hot Corner Insider live strategy session here every week. We'll be back next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. In the meantime, you can see us on the morning show every morning, 8:30 to 10, right here on Stock Market TV. With any questions, comments, concerns, want to reach out, say hi, shoot us a note at info@allstarcharts.com. Happy Wednesday, everybody.